was asked to share just a little bit of my heart about my decision to live in the dorms again next year, and I suppose just what led up to that decision, and just me deciding to quit both of my jobs for next year. I thought I'd talk about that a bit. So, the first thing is I just wanted to share a verse that's encouraged my heart regarding this subject. So, the verse is Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your ways to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. So you can dwell on that and come to your own conclusions. But one thing I love about that verse is how it says He will act, not that you have to do a bunch of things or have some big agenda or anything like that. So I guess I want to talk about why I'd be moving back into the dorms. It's a pretty hard question, especially initially when I found out about River Glen. I wanted to be there so badly, and I've experienced living in a community of believers before on infusions and spring break trips and things, and I didn't want to miss out at all. So it was really sad. Plus, I thought for about 3 or 4 months that I was going to be in Westfall on my own before we found out Emily was going to be there, and so I was trying to figure out why God would want me to be alone and all these different things. So it was hard to make that decision, but I put a lot of, I guess I talked to other people about it, and a lot of prayer went into it, and I just really felt led to be there. So I felt like the dorms would be where I'd be most effective too. So I guess here's a list of why I think the dorms are awesome. So one thing that's really cool about the dorms is it's just a really awesome setup for building the foundation for a missional community. I've seen it where there's just so much more Christ's love on display in a community of believers as opposed to just one person sometimes. And that's whether you're in the dorms or in River Glen, I guess. But it's just really important, I think, to have other people just tell you when you're messing up, or to have other people set an example for you and to grow with you and to remind you what truth is. Because, I mean, sometimes we're just so inundated with worldly things, it's so hard to sometimes it's just easier to believe lies when you're alone. And I think just to be influenced by the lifestyles of the people around you is hard too sometimes if you're not with other believers. And so it's a really sweet thing to be in community. I feel like also just being on your own, though, in the dorms, your life really is on display, especially when you're sharing a bathroom with 20 other women. There's something special about that. And I don't know, a lot of kids on my floor are going to be, they'll never have had the experience of living with a professing Christian before. And I know when I first came to college and joined the Rock, I'd never seen people have quiet times every morning or go to a Bible study of their own will every week and really own their faith. I'd never seen that before. So I think it's a really sweet opportunity to do that. I think there's a lot more opportunities to meet people who are just on their own for the first time and kind of right now just figuring out what kind of person they're going to be and developing these habits they're going to have for the rest of their life. It's a really interesting life stage that they're in, and it's cool, I guess, to try to infiltrate that if you can. It's just a sweet place to be at. So, plus in the dorms, it's a lot of things aren't weird in that context that are weird in like an apartment or a house or something. You can ask your neighbors to go to dinner with you or even walk them to class. I guess it's a little weird to take out their trash for them, but you just get to do things that are kind of awkward in other situations. And in the last 2 years, I've just seen God bless it so much firsthand. It's just so amazing to see what He can do when you go into it prayerfully and with a heart that's lent to His purposes and His will. I know my own heart has just been so encouraged and challenged so much just living like that in the dorms. But I've also seen what happens when you don't have the right heart set either. I think there's two sides in the middle to any one thing, and so one thing I want to learn to do better is just to check my heart and motives all the time and get in the habit of doing that. One thing I also want to be cautious of is just letting my heart stray towards trying to outreach as my main goal. I know that I might tend to do that or try to do that a little bit. I think the main thing that I want to focus on is just seeking to endeavor just to constantly walk in God's presence and just know God more. And really those two things shouldn't be so different, but I find myself sometimes trying to do outreach sort of things in my own strength as opposed to trusting God with things, or even, I don't know, just trying to do it on my own, and I get burnt out very quickly if I try to do that. So those are things that are really cool about the dorms. I wanted to talk a little bit just about trusting God with my finances, because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot the last 6 months. I think for me, the last year, I just got really comfortable telling people with my job. I got really comfortable saying I'm an executive producer, and it just drew my heart and towards the wrong things, or tempted my heart in the wrong ways, just towards being prideful and seeking other people's affirmation. Um, there's a temptation there for me to try and set myself up for a future that I could determine and just control on my own terms, where I wouldn't need to trust God, because I was networking and making myself look good on paper for future jobs and employers and things like that. So it was just kind of not a good place for me to be at. A question I kept asking myself was if I stayed in those jobs for next year, if I'd be continue to be a good steward of my money and my time. And actually, God had set it up where I could afford to stay in school next year without having to work. And so then the question for me became if staying at the TV station or at the financial aid office, if that would be the best investment of his time and most impactful in the context of eternity. I think if my end goal was for my career, then yeah, it makes sense for me to stay there. But there's so much more to it than that. And I just really wanted to, I guess, serve God in it. So I think a lot of times there's a temptation for me to, I don't know. I think we can reject God's provision by seeking comfort elsewhere. And my pitfalls would be things like security with money and prominence, or even just achievement, especially at school and at work. There's a verse that says, "Do not tremble, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And I think when you hold on to that promise, it really enables us to move confidently into the future and feel safe and secure in things that are really safe and secure, not these temporary things that the world kind of offers. So those are my thoughts. I really hope that encourages your heart.